the Lexus Sports Extra with Josh Moser, Mike DePasquale, Donovan Campbell, and Drew Rosenhaus.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in. This is a Lexus Sports Extra. I'm Josh Moser. Tonight, the Heat adding a five-time All-Star to the roster, bolstering their lineup to hopefully make a deep playoff run. Remember, Miami one shot short of the NBA Finals last year. That player, Kevin Love, says he will sign with Miami after reaching a buyout with Cleveland this weekend. Love also speaking to the 76ers, ultimately choosing to come right here to the 305. The 34-year-old is expected to play a significant role in the second half of the season. Bam and Tyler Hero are excited to welcome the former NBA champion.
Guys who's won before, knows how to win, been in those battles. And, you know, he'll be like a second UD for us. And I feel like he'll give us a great opportunity, great wisdom.
Getting a guy like that, we've seen what that can do if we add veteran players like that mid-season through midway through the season. You know, usually that leads to good runs and long playoff runs for us as a team.
Hopefully it works out. The Heat will also add center Cody Zeller. Former lottery pick was cut by the Jazz just before the start of the season. He adds size and effectively replaces Dwayne Dedmon, who was sent to San Antonio at the trade deadline. For more on the latest Heat moves, we bring in our insider, Ethan Skolnick, to sort this all out. Ethan, we start with Kevin Love immediately. How much better does he make this Miami roster?
Well, he fills some holes for them, and that's the thing. This is not the Kevin Love of Minnesota. It's not even the Kevin Love of early days in Cleveland. This is a Kevin Love who essentially was out of the rotation this year out of injuries. So you have to take that into account. He's never been a great one-on-one defender. They're going to have to hide him there a little bit. But what he gives you is some rebounding for sure. He can still do that. He never really relied on athleticism for that anyway. And he should be a plus three-point shooter. He shot about 35% from three this year. That was down, but I think with increased minutes, that'll probably get closer to 40%. This team desperately needs three-point shooting, so he'll give them some spacing. Look, prime Kevin Love would be the perfect guy to play next to Bam, okay? This Kevin Love, probably for 20 to 25 minutes, he should be more effective than some of the other bigs that they've tried this season.
Ethan, how likely is it that Kevin Love starts over Caleb Martin?
I think there's a pretty good chance of it. It may not happen right away, but it comes down to rotation balancing. So Caleb has been playing out of position and playing well this season, but they need a wing off the bench. They need a defensive wing off the bench. That's the role that Caleb Martin played last season, playing behind Jimmy Butler. I think that'll allow them to rest Jimmy a little bit more, or maybe they don't have to rest him so much in the fourth quarter. It'd be better if he got in there before 6 minutes were left in every game. So I think that is an option to put Caleb off the bench. Plus, I think defensively, the bench may be a little bit weak if you don't move Caleb there. So to me, I think the idea is you get Kevin Love in as a starter, kind of a low-minute starter in the first quarter and the third quarter, and then you kind of see if he closes. I think that's the most likely scenario.
What is now the ceiling for this Heat team with these two acquisitions?
I don't think it's changed a lot. I don't mean to put a damper on this. I think that this may help them avert the worst case scenario. Like, in other words, I think that this probably pushes them out of the play-in. Right now, they're in the play-in. I think it probably pushes them up closer. You know, they lost to the Nets. I still think they can pass the Nets. They might be able to pass Cleveland. It's unlikely. I do think they can pass the Knicks. So maybe they get to a 5 seed, and then maybe it gives them a better chance to win a first-round series. I still think this is a second-round exit team. I don't know. Even with Love added, I don't see enough shooting on this roster. We don't know what kind of condition Kyle Lowry is going to come back in. We don't know what kind of condition Victor Oladipo is going to come back in. So they decided not to get a guard at the buyout deadline. They must have confidence in one or both. But you kind of need both, honestly, along with Gabe Vincent and Tyler Hero to be able to make a run here. So I'm going to say this is still a second-round exit team.
A lot of questions to be answered. Ethan, how much does this move, signing Kevin Love, make up for the fact that realistically the Heat did nothing at the trade deadline?
Well, now they can say they did something, because what they can say is they traded Dwayne Dedmon in a second-round pick to clear the space, to have 2 slots, and then they could pick up Kevin Love and Cody Zeller, because they could have picked up Cody Zeller before, when they worked him out, but they were trying to avoid the tax. So, look, it makes it look a little bit better. There wasn't a ton out there at the trade deadline to do. I still think that this team's going to need an overhaul in the offseason. But at least this gives us something to talk about. This has been a really painful season to cover because there just really hasn't been a lot new. So the Kevin Love thing in particular, more so than Zeller, obviously, will give us something to chew on for a couple of weeks here.
Hopefully it's a spark for this Heat roster. Ethan, you're always a spark for us on Lexus Sports Extra. We appreciate the time as always.
Thanks a lot, Josh.
NBA All-Star Game tonight in Salt Lake City. The Heat's Bam Adebayo playing for Team Giannis. First quarter, this too easy. Bam on the two-handed flush. Second quarter, Bam just loving that All-Star defense. 4 points for Adebayo. Let's go to the third. Damian Lillard launching from half court, and man, is he good. He had 26. Fourth quarter, Jason Tatum taking over. He was Giannis's first pick, and it worked out. A new NBA All-Star record, 55-point performance. He wins the Kobe Bryant All-Star Game MVP award. First team to 182 points wins. Lillard sending it off in Dame time. Team Giannis beats Team LeBron 184-175. Heat standout Victor Oladipo, former All-Star himself, hoping to return to form after injury. And as good as Oladipo is on the court when he's healthy, he is just as good at something else. Our Mike DePasquale explains.
Away from basketball, the world has heard Victor.
All it took was one day for me to love you.
When I just want to, listen to music or make a song, I can go do that. I have the ability to do that.
Victor has enjoyed the game he loves and his passion for music since he was nearly 10 years old, singing at his family's church. 3 years ago, he dazzled a national TV audience on The Masked Singer.
There's always been a rainbow hanging over your head.
I had just torn my quad, the very first time, not the second repair, but I was going through, a tough time, and to go on the show and do as well as I did, and kind of do something I've always dreamed about doing, to perform. And during that time, I had a bad leg, so I was trying to make sure I didn't fall on stage or anything like that either.
It came at the right time for Victor. Oladipo admits he needed to be mentally strong, recording music and battling back from 2 surgeries on his right knee the past 4 years.
It's not necessarily going to work in your favor every time, but you have to have the mental reserve to understand, it can be the way you want it to be.
Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra knows he has a player with a lot of heart and a lot of talent on a different stage.
Ain't too proud to believe, baby.
Vic's a pro. Come on, this is a totally different level. We had a holiday party. Once he did it, it was a mic drop moment. And he ended up doing 2 or 3 songs because we said, just keep going.
One of Oladipo's all-time favorite singers is Dean Martin. We gave it a shot, singing a couple of Martin's all-time hits.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. I remember the other Dean Martin song too. You're nobody till somebody loves you, so find yourself somebody to love you. Yeah, that's my jump.
Something else Victor and I have in common, we both like Johnny Cash and his one-time hit song, Ring of Fire. For Lexus Sports Extra, I'm Mike DePasquale.
Thank you so much, Mike. Tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, the Dolphins will officially introduce new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. Former Broncos head coach will now become the highest paid assistant in football.
Just to get this franchise back to the heights that it had in years past, I think the NFL is a better league when the Dolphins are contending. There's a quality football team here that has great potential, and hopefully we can untap that potential and have a good season.
Extra points.
For more on the Dolphins and the NFL, we bring in our insider, Drew Rosenhaus. Drew, there's so much excitement for Vic Fangio taking over as the Dolphins defensive coordinator. You represent so many players on that side of the ball. What are you hearing from your clients?
They expect that he's going to run a similar scheme to what the Dolphins have had the last few years. It'll really be the same scheme that Brian Flores had. 3-4 defensive scheme, which fits their personnel. They've got Chubb and Jalen Phillips on the edge, Sealer, Wilkins, Emmanuel Ogbah. Listen, it's a big get. He's the highest paid assistant coach in the NFL. That's gigantic. We call him the head coach of defense. They got the head coach of offense, and McDaniel. I think it's a great combination. He'll bring out the best of this defense.
We've seen Fangio run top 10 defenses. Remember, he was a head coach for the Broncos. Should we expect the Dolphins to be a top 10 D next season?
Depends if they can get better at cornerback. Xavier Howard was battling injuries. They lost Byron Jones. Nick Needham got hurt. They really struggled. I mean, that is the number one need this offseason. Get healthy at cornerback. The safeties, Javon Holland's a Pro Bowl caliber guy. Obviously, they're hoping Brandon Jones can come back from his knee injury. But if they can get the secondary right, that front seven is very gifted. We talked about the front. They've got linebackers that can play with Jerome Baker, Landon Roberts, Duke Riley and company. They've got the makings of a top 10 defense.
Drew, on the national landscape, the Bears coming out and saying that Justin Fields is their guy. They still hold the number one pick, but are open to trading it. What do you expect to happen there?
Well, selfishly, I believe the Bears should take our client, Jalen Carter, with the number one pick. They obviously need a defensive tackle, and he's the guy. Most people think he's the best player in the draft, but everybody wants quarterbacks. You've got Houston at number 2, the Colts at number 4. Would they trade up with the Bears? Do the Bears feel comfortable moving down? Would a guy like Jalen Carter still be there, or Will Anderson from Alabama? It's going to be a lot of unpredictability. I think we could have that type of drama this year in Kansas City, where the draft is.
Speaking of Kansas City, Eric Bieniemy leaving to take the same position in Washington. Drew, essentially this is a lateral move. Why make it?
I don't think it's lateral. Andy Reid, everybody knows Reid runs the offense in Kansas City. This gives Bieniemy the chance to be the guy. He wasn't the guy. He was coaching underneath an offensive genius and legend in KC. Now in Washington, he's the man. It's his offense, and he's going to run the show.
Excited for him to call plays. Maybe he'll get a head coaching opportunity. Drew, we appreciate the time as always.
You bet, Josh. Good being here.
He's the best. Daytona 500 beginning the new NASCAR season. Alex Bowman starting on the pole in this year's Great American Race. It is a Thunderbirds flyover to get this one started, roughly 250 miles north of us for the 65th running of the Daytona 500. 13 laps to go in stage 2. Tyler Reddick spins into Ryan Blaney and Eric Jones. Caution comes out. Remember, Reddick changing to the number 45 car this season. We go to a 2-lap overtime. Kyle Busch bumps Austin Dillon. Dillon gets turned around, causes a pileup. 7th caution of the race. And on the restart, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Joey Logano in the lead. Travis Pastrana, the former X Games extraordinaire, gets loose. Stenhouse Jr. avoids the carnage to take checkers for the 35-year-old Stenhouse. This is a lifetime achievement on the track that has special meaning.
This is unbelievable. This is the site of my last win back in 2017. We've worked really hard. We had a couple shots last year to get a win and fell short. It was a tough season, but, man, we got it done. Daytona 500.
Stenhouse becoming the 42nd driver to win the Great American Race. Phenomenal way to start the new season. And when Lexus Sports Extra returns, the Panthers hope to use home ice to help them get to the playoffs. Find out how. Plus, we learn the next big name in tennis hailing from right here in South Florida. And this and more coming up after the break.